Back now on America's Forum and joined by former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. Mike has just returned from China and he joins us on the date of the 25th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre. Mike, we welcome you back to America's Forum, and as you join us by Skype, did anyone with whom you visit raise the sensitive subject of Tiananmen Square when you were there?
JD, it's very interesting that you bring that up because I mentioned it. I talked to several of the folks we spoke with. I talked to the young guide who was about 32 years old, and she had no knowledge of Tiananmen Square, or at least she claimed not to have. And the fact is, it is so carefully, totally extrapolated from all Chinese history books. One can't mention it. It's illegal to talk about it. People don't discuss it in public. And when I said, we were in Tiananmen Square, actually, at the very moment, and I said, what do you guys think about what happened here in 1989? And she looked at me with this puzzled look, like, well, what do you mean? And I said, you know, the uprising, the student uprising, and the Chinese put down that resulted in hundreds of deaths. And she gave me that look, sort of a combination of, gee, I can't talk about that for fear of being arrested, and a combination of, gee, I've never heard of that because that wasn't in any of my history books. So if you Google Tiananmen Square 1989 while you're in China, you'll find that that information is blocked, as is a lot of information on the website, including all Facebook, all YouTube, all Twitter, which frankly may not be a bad idea. But back to your point, no, Tiananmen Square is very much hushed up in China even today. So in spite of all the economic things that are going on that are really amazing in China, let's not forget it's still a communist government and they act like it.
And Mike, to expound upon what you told us, your experience with a guide, we actually have sound from another young Chinese person bearing out what you had to say, given the fact that the government has banned all mention of this. Take a listen to this student at Tiananmen Square.
Never ever. In our textbooks, this never was mentioned, and there was no explanation.
The experience that I had, and I even asked guides when we were in Chengdu and Xi'an and Shanghai, you know, if I had an opportunity to have a casual conversation with a Chinese resident, you know, I'd try to just bring up about, well, what does the government let you do? Do you have religious freedom, for example? I would bring that up. Oh, yes, we have religious freedom. I said, really, can you show me where the evangelical churches are? I'd love to visit one. No, I don't know. We don't have many Christians here. So there's still a lot to be done in China. Here's what worries me, though, JD, and this is my comment coming back after having been there. I think that, sadly, China is becoming more like the United States used to be, and the United States is becoming more like China used to be. China is definitely moving in a new direction. They're not there yet. But then, unfortunately, we're moving in a new direction. Ours isn't so positive. And we're getting to the place where our government is controlling much more of what we say, what we think, what we do. They're invading our privacy. We ought to be scared to death when we look at the contrast. Their capitalism is exploding. Ours is declining. Their sense of even allowing certain things is beginning to loosen up a bit. Ours is clamping down. That ought to scare the daylights out of Americans.
It is a cautionary note, Governor Huckabee, and obviously our focus internationally is not limited to China, even though this is a special anniversary in terms of Tiananmen Square. We turn to national security, foreign affairs, dominating headlines right now, the Bo Bergdahl prisoner swap. The Taliban has released video showing this handover. In your mind, Governor, is this a legitimate trade of prisoners, or was this a negotiation with terrorists?
Well, it apparently was most certainly a negotiation with terrorists. Look, I'm happy for the Bergdahl family that their son is released. And I'm a father, and I don't care what my son did. You tell me he's coming home to me, I'm a happy guy. But as a person who watched this unfold, and particularly the outright lies that were told by the Obama administration on this, for example, we're going to keep an eye on these 5 guys. No, they're not, because they have no way to keep an eye on them. They were turned over to Qatar as soon as they got there. Immediately, the Taliban claimed that they were right back in business. And my question is, how are you going to keep an eye on somebody? Because it's been explicitly made clear that there will be no U.S. monitoring of these individuals. They're all the baddest of the bad. These aren't, some street punks who got in trouble for spray painting graffiti on a bridge. These are people who masterminded the plots that killed thousands of people. And so to turn these particular people loose is really one of those most outrageous acts that this president, this administration has committed. Time magazine, hardly a conservative voice, has now reported that within the State Department and White House, the message was to the military and intelligence community, just suck it up and get used to it. Now, I think this is absurd. I think the exact term was suck it up and salute it. But maybe we ought to send the trousers of some of these people at the White House up the flagpole and see if anybody salutes that.
Governor, we see this White House and this kind of, at once, it seems they're out of touch with reality, the orders from on high. Your fellow Republican, the freshman senator from Florida, Marco Rubio, had this to say about our current president's style of leadership. Listen.
And again, I mean, this is a pattern of behavior by this White House. He believes somehow that he's become a monarch or an emperor that can basically ignore the law and do whatever he wants. And there's a real growing frustration, even among Democrats, at this sort of behavior.
So the president, and you hear Senator Rubio there is interviewed by Fox News. Marco Rubio says he, in essence, has become Emperor Obama the First, at least in terms of temperament. Do you agree with the Florida senator, Mike?
Well, halfway. And here's the halfway. Does he think he's an emperor? I think he kind of does. But here's the other part of that. This is an emperor with no clothes. And the reason I say that is because it's one thing to be arrogant enough to think that, you have total control over all things government, which in this form of government that we have in the United States, you most certainly do not. But this isn't just about arrogance. This is about incompetence. And I know that's a blunt statement, but let me be blunt. This is a president who's exercised not only an arrogance toward his office and toward all those other branches of government and the checks and balances that we're supposed to have, but this is a president who, from a management standpoint, has shown he is incompetent. He can't manage domestic issues, whether it's the VA or the NSA, and he can't manage the world stage, whether it's Putin, Syria, terrorists from Gitmo.
And Mike Huckabee, we will talk more about domestic situations in terms of policy and politics when you rejoin us later here on America's Forum. Please stay tuned as we have more with former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee. We'll be right back.